Hey there folks, this is for all the cat lovers out there, myself included. I really can't believe I just admitted that on the internet. These are the cats that we'll be carving today. Let me show you guys how to carve these guys. Alright folks, so we are going to be carving this cat specifically. This is on a 2-inch block, so from here to here is 2 inches, and from here to here it's about roughly 4 inches or so, and it is carved on a 3/8 of an inch thick piece of wood. By contrast, this guy is carved on a 1.5, so from here to here is 1.5 inches. This is roughly 3 inches or so. And the same thing, carved on 3/8 of an inch thick. Sometimes the algorithm can't be trusted to let you know exactly when a new video or a new stencil comes out. We have an email list. You'll get notifications of when we put up new stencils. Go ahead and hit that email list and put your email into it. Carve them using a set of stencils. So here's the block of wood that we're going to be using. So 3/8 of an inch, roughly 4 inches. I don't really know the measurement. All I do is I put it on here, I draw a line at the highest point, and then I take it to a bandsaw or a handsaw or something like that, and I cut the piece of wood. This is the only one that you do need to worry about. This thickness is 3/8 of an inch, roughly 3/8 of an inch. Let's go and get started. So to get started, we're going to be using the larger stencil. This is the 2-inch version, so from here to here, 2 inches once again, and we're just going to set it on there. All I'm going to do is trace all the visible lines, except for these guys. These are just to give this upper section some support, so, you know, just kind of avoid it. And the same thing down here, you can see the tails. So those things are there. So just avoid those parts and you'll be fine. Okay, and then just trace the perimeter. So just a note over here, this is not my original design. This is from Dalo Woodcarver. He is my idol in terms of carving. If you haven't seen his carvings, they're absolutely immaculate. Way better than anything that I carve. And he, like before, he's been generous enough to let me use some of his carvings to make a stencil. So he doesn't give me a stencil, I still have to design it myself, but still a great step to get me going in the right direction. Anyway, I'll leave a link to his video in the description. Make sure that you check it out. And also, there'll be plenty of stuff in the description, links to this stencil specifically, some of the tools that I use. And another disclaimer, this is going to be Gouge City, so because of the fact that you have to reduce the depth so much, you have to use gouges. So this is going to be a little bit trickier of a carving than you might anticipate. You could try doing this just with a knife, but yeah, I haven't had much success with it. But if you would like to try that, by all means, be my guest. Let's see if we missed anything. Oh yeah, we missed a whole log piece over there. So let's see, let's put it back on there and do this part. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so what we can do is fill in some of the gaps, just so that we don't have too much trouble with it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Excellent. Alright, so the first step that we're going to do is we're going to remove all the material outside of the lines. Pretty straightforward. Alright folks, so I'm just using a flex cut large roughing knife, and I'm going to get started right here next to the log. So do a little cut like that and just kind of go to town. Okay, so that's one side of it. Okay. Well, I think we've snuck up on the line well enough. Boy, it's looking a little ominous out there. Well, you guys can probably hear all that thunder over there. See if it holds up. Okay, so kind of sneak up as close as you can to that line, because otherwise your cat's just going to look a little Garfield looking, so you know, and if you're going for that, that's fine too. Alright, let's do this top section right here. This one's a little bit more challenging because there's not as much material there, and there's a little bit more complex stuff going on, but it is manageable. Okay, get in there. Let's do the other side. Okay, so now let's do this top section. So right here we got pretty much as close as we can, maybe a little bit more, but there's that little hump that we want to preserve for later. So we're going to come in there with a V-tool in a little bit and get that sorted out. So same thing on this side. Okay, nice. So let's go ahead and do this section up here. So first I'm going to trace it down and I'm going to take that line up. Same thing over here, there, and there. So I'm going to take that line back and back. Now you can come in here with your knife and kind of chip away at it like that if you'd like, or see which tool. Get a V-tool. Just kind of start at the apex and work your way back like that. You could do that on both sides. So now it's much easier to knock this off with your knife. So come over here. You can also just come with the wings of the V-tool and just take it across. Same thing over here. Talked about sharpening these V-tools in a previous video, and yeah, you can use them just like a chisel. So there you go. It's working like a chisel with the added benefit of having that cutting point right at the bottom too. So very, very beneficial tool. And let's see if we can get this guy as low as possible. We want to get as close to that line as possible. And I would say this is the one that I would say try to get as close as you can to that line, because if you don't, then your cat's just going to have a really big forehead. And once again, that's okay, but you know, proportions matter. Sometimes. But who am I to speak? My cat has a really big forehead, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, there we go. So kind of get a little bit closer, you know. Come back and clean it up just a little bit. Okay, like that. That V-tool really helped us out with that weird grain direction. Okay, that is excellent. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start doing the face, right? So that's going to be, as always, the most challenging. So I'm going to put away this V-tool, and I'm actually going to switch knives to perhaps something a little bit sharper or a little bit thinner that'll help me get around those curves. So this is a really nice blade, OCC blade, that was touched up by Mr. Dunkel. Okay, so I'm going to do the paws, the top of the mouth right there, and then the paws over here, and then I'm going to outline the bottom as well, so into the wood as well. So like this, I mean. So just go like this, very lightly, and kind of just sticking the tip of the blade in there, and that's, you know, a 16th, 32nd, whatever that means to you. Don't do too much effort, because here is exactly where the knife can slip if it encounters any change in density. So it doesn't have to be perfectly on the line, but you know, just Maybe on the line would be good, if at all possible. Remember that down here he's got that little mouth opening, so you can overshoot it a little bit and then come back and fix it. Okay. So this exit right here, that's where you gotta watch out for that knife to kind of slip past your hand. So that's how I've gotten in trouble and gotten cut, by this section right here. See, my finger is now out of the way. I don't have any other fingers over there. There we go. Okay, perfect. So let's come back and do a couple more. Just get it a little bit deeper. A little bit deeper. And you can see that knife is able to get in there really nice and deep. And ultimately, you want just a little bit over 1/8 of an inch, right? And it's always, you can always come back and give it a little bit more, but I do recommend that at least on that first pass you go fairly light. And it's always a good idea to switch your grip up too. It's interesting, traditional carvers, like whenever they carve like a big plaque or a big frame or assembly thing like that, they'll just clamp their thing down and keep their hands on the back. Whereas like wood carvers that use knives, their hands are always in the way. Okay, so now we're just gonna relief all this stuff. So let's start on the bottom, so right here, and take all that wood out right here. So it's gonna be tricky because we need to push the knife a little bit. So this is almost like chip carving, really. Not even sure I have the right knife for chip carving, but here we are. Okay, so there you go. Look at that. We just separated the paws from that piece of wood, the log that the cat is onto. Okay, so before we get rid of this drawing right here, I'm going to do something. I have a micro V tool. This is a 45-degree micro V tool from FlexCut, and all I'm going to do is, you see this line right here? I'm going to extend it back here, and this hump right here, I'm also going to extend it. So I'm going to do that on both sides. Right there. And I'm going to come in with my V-tool, at least for that lower one, so I can actually get in there. And I'm going to take that line all the way back. And the same thing on this other side. Okay. Now for the other one, I can get a larger V-tool. This is, I think, a 60-degree, and it's about 10 millimeters or so. It's fairly large. There we go. You see that? So 2 lines down the side of the face, and we can always come back and round those over a little bit. Okay, so yeah, so let's get that, round it over some. Look at that. Excellent. Okay, so now we're going to do the face. And don't worry about erasing the eyes, because since we're going so shallow, it's actually quite easy to reuse the stencil and redraw those eyes. So go ahead and take this off as far as you can. Let me see if I can get that out. Yep. And over here. Excellent. Okay. Now, I'm going to make it almost like a trapezoid. So this section of the face is going to go down to about halfway, right? So right here. Maybe, let's see. So you see those ears, they're tucked back. Maybe even a little bit further. So maybe like right there. And right there. So let me show you what I mean. So like this, and back. Back. Okay, and then this side as well. Start off with a light cut, then do a little bit more. Okay. Now we're going to do the center of the face as well, like that, and try to push everything back some. And now we're just going to try to get the proportions right. All right, first of all, we want a nice round top of the head right here. Okay, I want the ears to kind of go back like this. There we go. It's looking pretty good. Okay. And I want to separate the face a little bit more from the snout. So right here. Okay, and make sure that the part right above the snout is not any lower than the rest of the face. What I mean by that is the elevation. So from here to there, that distance should be the highest right here. And the lowest should be the ears. So it should gradually taper backward. That looks good. Like I said, Dalo does the same exact carving. I didn't feel like it really needed any tweaking, any changing, because this carving is pretty fantastic. So, and I thought it would be great to bring a stencil to the carving community of a cat. So I've been wanting to do it for a while, and finally I decided to give it a try. And this is by far one of the better ones that I enjoy carving. So there we go. Okay, and the same thing up here for the forehead. So now we're just going to kind of smoothen out the forehead with the ears. Yes, I'm going against the grain there. Probably should not, but you know what? If you have a sharp enough knife, it'll work. Okay, now just kind of smoothing out the ears some. Okay, so before we put the eyes back on there, let's go ahead and take care of the ears. So I like this gouge. Like I said, this is a gouge studio here. This is a number 7 bent neck 10 millimeter. And all I do is just give the ears a little bit of a gouging, right there. Number 7 is kind of subtle enough that it's, it's not too deep of a gouge. Now remember, there were some lines on there. Let me show you the difference here. So these ears are separated from the head, these are not. You can kind of pick your poison, whichever one you want to do. So if you do the line and separate the head, it's going to look like this, otherwise it'll look like this. We'll go for this one now. So same thing over here. Yep. I really like this file bent neck one. It's, I don't know, it's kind of neat. Okay, and if you did end up with any harsh edges, just now's your chance to kind of take those off. Okay. So let's go ahead and work on these hands really quick. So all we're going to do is round these over. Nothing too crazy. Just take your knife and knock off all the hard edges. You'll see in Dalo's video that he actually extends one of these arms and it looks pretty adorable. You know, it's like one cat that's kind of trying to reach its way and get back up onto this log kind of thing. It's really neat. And these are really cool, you know, you can hang them up as magnets, and gosh, you can make them as Christmas tree ornaments. That's exactly what I plan on doing with these, so yeah. Okay, let's keep on rounding this over. You may want to relieve a little bit more into that log. We'll see how it turns out. Let's take down this corner. It's kind of getting in the way. Okay, right here, we're gonna do, I don't trust my V tool right now. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna do a light indentation right here, take it down the middle, and indent the mouth as well. Right there, and doing the other side. And all we're gonna do is take out a couple slivers of wood. So the mouth is gonna indent under that lower lip is gonna come in underneath the mouth, like that. And then the nose is gonna kind of stick out some, so like that. So it's all about knowing which part of the anatomy to kind of tuck underneath which other piece. It doesn't take much to really get to establish a feeling or look or something like that. Just make it subtle. Okay, cool. Now let's just go ahead and round it over. So there's that nose. Separate the mouth from the hands a little bit. Just round over these features. Give them a little bit of curvature. Same thing with the bottom of the mouth. You know, all the while remembering that wood has a grain direction, so try to use it to your advantage. Right, so you could tuck this mouth in just a little bit deeper, not too much. Not like a Santa Claus, I would say, right? This cat mouth is pretty minuscule. Kind of why I only decided to go with a 1.5 and a 2-inch version of this, because I think a 1-inch cat is just extremely tiny. The 1.5 is already pretty small, so that would be pushing the envelope a little bit too far, I think. Okay, there we go. Nice. Okay. Now, of course, let's get working on the eyes, because if the eyes turn out well, then we can keep going, and if not, then, well, we'll probably leave this project for another day. Okay. So to do the eyes, take the same stencil, bring it back on here. Just lay it flat where it belongs, and you see, the stencil doesn't really care how much wood you took off. It almost doesn't matter. Like you can bend this back pretty easily right here. So take your pencil, extend the lead a little bit, and trace out those eyes. Try to angle your pencil underneath it. You know, not a great deal, just enough that get a good sized eye. Let's see if that works. Look at that. Fabulous. They're a little askew that way. Let's see if we need to fix that some. Let's see which eye got to going where. That move on me. Okay. I think that'll be good. Let's give it a try. Okay. So for this, just trace it with your knife. You can trace on the line or just outside the line. All right, and it's not very far, so, you know, go shallow and then come back and do it a little bit deeper again. There we go. Let's try the other side. All right, let's see what we got. So now we're just going to start to hollow out that eye, remembering that there's a grain direction. If it looks like it's just going to flake off or tear or something like that, stop and try to approach it from a different angle. But overall, it should behave pretty well. If it's not, you know, it's probably that your grain is either, you know, really rough, or that your knife is just not sharp enough. So consider sharpening it, stropping it, whatever you need to do to get this to work out. So I've been surprised by how many people have been asking where to get wood. And, you know, I'm not formally endorsing anyone, but all the wood that I've gotten has been from Heineck. And you know, it's been quality wood. This wood right here is from Heineck. I will say that the shipping prices can be a little exorbitant, but having compared this wood to that of, oh shucks, look at that, I tore it because I did not score it deep enough. That's okay. I don't think anyone's gonna notice. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, good. Now one last step for these eyes, and we'll get to talking about wood again in a second, is so you need to chamfer the eye socket. So right here, take your knife, and now you do need to pay attention to grain direction. Like that, and like that. Excellent. Let's see, we'll also do this one right here. And this one, probably not as steep as that other one. That's the bottom of the eyelid. Cool. There we go. Now you can always come back and fix the eye. Make sure that the eye and the eye socket meet at the same elevation. And do yourself a favor and flatten the eye as much as possible. Because if you have kind of like a mountainous looking eyeball in there, it's going to be quite a pain in the butt to paint it. All right. Okay, same thing for this other side. So yeah, so you know, I get my wood from Heineck, and I've only had maybe one piece of wood that has ever given me trouble, whereas I got other wood from, you know, not there. And you know, something that's maybe a little bit more commercially available, and it's just been not very good. So give it a try, you know, try HeineckWood.com. Their wood is pretty good. Okay, cool. Excellent. Look at that. Those eyes look pretty darn good. Even though that they were a little bit askew that way, I think it worked out, right? So you can always pretty these up a little bit more, but I think that's perfectly fine. Honestly, when you paint them, that's really gonna make the biggest difference. So here, I'm gonna give these hands a little bit more depth into this log, which means I need to remove the log some. And Dalo makes this carving a little bit deeper than I do, and that's perfectly fine. And so he has the arms kind of wrap up around the log on this side. So yeah, his carving is a little bit different than mine. think overall they're just as great. Except that his is obviously superior. Okay, excellent. So, I promise you guys gouges, and we are gonna get to the gouge city pretty soon. Okay, next step. So we took care of the top. That's fantastic. Let's do this bottom section right here. So first thing I want to do is get my V-tool and separate that log from the body. Excellent. Now I can turn the V-tool and start to use that chisel, that wing, to really get some depth. So I want to do it as long as possible. Right here, maybe a little bit deeper. And maybe one more. That's why it's beneficial to have one of these bigger V-tools. Excellent. Okay, I think I might need to sharpen this tool now. That might be it for that one. Okay, so now I'm just going to come in and try to clean this up a little bit. Whew. Hopefully it holds out to the end of the video. Let's see. Okay, that looks pretty good. That's good. Alright, so if you didn't have that V-tool, you probably would have had to do that with your knife, which, you know, can be a little tricky. Okay, so now let's start to separate these legs. So you got a number 9, 10 millimeter. So this is, I think it's a half round. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start at the bottom here, and we're just gonna go upward. Yeah, easier said than done. And take it over here, and over here as well. So now think of this as like 2 steps. One is gonna be this section right here, that's above the hips. That's going to be the lowest section, and then this section underneath the feet is going to be the next lowest one. So first off, let's go ahead and separate these feet from the rest of this this body. So just outline it right on the line as best you can. Okay, make sure right here that the knife doesn't slip on you. Round it over. Now you can come here and try to reduce all that with your knife, and that's fine. It might work for you, but I promise you that you're going to get tired of doing that, because you're going to have all sorts of flakes, especially when you go around this bend right here. So instead, we're going to use some gouges. Okay, right here. Okay, now let's reduce this tail some, just a little bit. Okay, let's round it over, make it nice and poofy. And you can do whatever tail design you want. I have kind of run out of creativity for today, so we're just doing a regular round tail, just like all the other ones. Guess you could do like a skinny one that kind of wraps around. That'd be kind of neat. Okay. Now, I reduce it down here. Okay, so now let's go for number 11. So this is number 11, 3 millimeters. and I'm going to separate the legs, the feet from the haunches, or whatever you want to call those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around right here and separate that. Same thing over here. Excellent. Okay, same thing for the other leg. Oy. Let's see, hopefully we didn't just ruin this. And if you need to, you can always come back with a knife and clean it up just a little bit. But it'd be really difficult to do that just with the knife. Alright, excellent. So, now this is one of my favorite tools. It's a number 11. I think it's 3/8 of an inch. It's sizable. That's definitely what it is. But it lets me do a really deep gouge, all in a really tight space. So there we go. Okay. Now here's the tricky thing is, after you do those gouges, then you have to kind of come back and flatten them out. Okay, so make those hips kind of rounded. This is what I love about thin knives, is that you can round them over. So like with a witch's hat, if you're trying to give it some curvature or something like that, it's hard to do that with a knife that has a lot of girth, or a lot of thickness to it, and thickness meaning in this direction. Alright, there we go. I think that's good for the bottom part. Now this top section still needs a little bit of help, so just gonna use the wings of this blade to kind of lower that just slightly. You know, just slightly. There we go. Let's see how that works out. Okay, let's use the knife and take that down. That section that we thought we messed up, look at that. Not so bad anymore. Okay, same here. Let's round over those haunches. Okay. Smoothing those out. So get rid of all those hard edges. Excellent. Now maybe come back with the smaller number 11 and clean it up a little bit. Oof. This one may need a little bit of stropping. Okay, excellent. There we go. Much better. Okay, this section right here, let's clean that up. Get it nice and low there. We really want to define those feet as much as possible. And pay attention to the grain if you can. This is probably the most difficult part of this carving, is getting these legs because they're at different elevations. Right. So you have to use a gouge. Okay, now let's shape these feet just a little bit more. And I get rid of any of those hard edges. Okay, let's see, do we need to reduce that anymore? Yeah. Just a little bit over here. Excellent. That looks pretty good. Let's try to clean this section up a little bit. And the easiest way to get rid of those gouge marks is with a little bit of sandpaper. Okay, now let's go ahead and gouge up the tail, just to give it some texture. Okay, well, there you have it. One nice little Dalo cat. Actually, we still got to finish up this log, so gotta round this guy over some over here. Trim for that right there. Okay, and now let's get our V-tool. Any V-tool works fine, and just give ourselves a couple lines. So one there, one there. Just give it a little bit of texture. Not crazy amount, just enough to make it recognizable as a piece of wood. It looks like I need to sharpen this V-tool now. Yep, so this tear out right here, that's an indication that the tool is no longer sharp. Alright, well there you go. Let's see if we can fix that with this other V-tool really quick. Yeah, that helped out some. Perfect. This one over here tore out pretty hard, so let's see. Yep. Great, so I have one V-tool that's sharp and one that's in need of being sharpened. Excellent. Okay, cool. Alright, now, for real, no kidding. This carving is now done. So I'll take it to the painting table and get that guy all painted up. there you have it, folks. Hope you guys have fun and carve yourself some cats.